Lots of news to go over today. Al Green has officially lost his seat. We cannot believe it took this long. Spencer Pratt is calling out Karen Bass for breaking the rules. Is this another rules for thee, not for me situation? And we're going to go over some updates on Iran. All that and more right now. Welcome to episode 60 of the Republic Brothers podcast. He's Matt, I'm Mike, and today is May 27th, 2026. Please hit that subscribe button now so you don't miss our next episode on Monday. Well, Matt, after nearly 2 decades of holding an iron grip on his congressional district, Al Green has officially lost his seat. Yep, you heard that right. The man who made a career out of introducing articles of impeachment and doing anything he can to interrupt President Trump's State of the Union has finally been ousted. Some media outlets are trying to say this was a major upset, but given the way he's acted over the last several years, I'm surprised this didn't happen sooner. Green basically turned the impeachment process into his personal hobby. He was the very first member of Congress to officially call for Donald Trump's impeachment from the House floor back in 2017. Over Trump's 2 terms, Green filed articles of impeachment multiple times, including 3 separate times in 2025 alone. Let's also not forget getting censured. On March 6, 2025, the House voted 224 to 198 to officially censure him. This came after he stood up and began loudly shouting over President Trump just minutes into his joint address to Congress, protesting potential Medicaid cuts. He had to be physically escorted out of the chamber by the Sergeant-at-Arms, making him only the 28th member of the House to be censured in U.S. history. Not a list that you should be proud to be on. Then he doubled down during the 2026 State of the Union address and was kicked out again for disrupting the speech. He later compared his actions to those of Rosa Parks and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Back up to October 2023, after Hamas attacked Israel, the House brought forward a bipartisan, non-binding resolution declaring that the U.S. stands with Israel and reaffirms its commitment to the nation's security. It passed 412 to 10. And of course, Green was one of the tiny handful of far-left Democrats, alongside Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, who voted against it. It is never a good thing when you're on the same side as those 2 women. And perhaps the funniest and dumbest thing he's done, during a high-profile 2019 House Financial Services Committee hearing featuring Wall Street's top executives, Green bypassed economic policy entirely to stage a racial litmus test. He demanded that the panel of CEOs look around and notice that none of them are minorities, and then directly grilled the JP Morgan Chase CEO on whether his bank had, quote, directly benefited from slavery in the 1800s. All these things are a culmination of why he finally lost his seat. Good riddance.
Absolutely. Good riddance to this lunatic. It got to the point where you just waited for Al Green's outburst anytime Trump was giving a speech. The Trump derangement syndrome was very strong in Green's case. All the antics were his way of making a statement because he didn't know anything about anything. He can't sit there and talk economic policy because he doesn't understand it. All he can do is turn to his favorite topic, which is identity politics. When you think about that from a leftist perspective, that is just picking colors. That was all he was good at. It reminds me of the Family Guy meme with the cop when he looks at the colors on his card to determine Peter can pass. He's a light enough color. That is the level of intelligence Al Green possesses. Fortunately, we only have to deal with him to the end of the year. I don't know what his plans are after his term in Congress ends, but I have a feeling he could be one of the new talking heads at ABC or CNN.
I don't know exactly where he posted it, but he did say somewhere that he was going to keep going after Trump even though he was out of Congress. He said something to the effect of he was in Congress long enough to still have some pull with some people and he can still go after him. It's like, come on, man. Just take your L and move on.
He can't take the L. He was there himself and filed articles of impeachment 6 times. He announced he was going to file articles of impeachment many times more. You would think at some point he would realize he doesn't have the ammunition to actually pull it off. There's not enough people who support his plan to make it happen.
No, and eventually it caught up to him. Eventually, people saw that he was a one-trick pony. and the only thing he wanted to do was try to go after Trump, and he wasn't actually getting anything done, and he finally lost. It finally caught up to him.
I'm sure all the voters in his district realized he's not actually good for anything, and he's not getting anything done for them. It was time for a change.
Yeah, I think you're right, though. I think he will definitely end up on ABC or CNN.
He can still talk about race there. He's not completely worthless to some.
He would probably be better off on The View, to be honest. That's where he really belongs.
What would Whoopi do if somebody else was there to give the stupid talking points? You need some kind of balance, and The View already has it. He'd have to take somebody's seat. Also, The View is a daytime talk show. Women like to listen to other women. How many middle-aged women do you think want to sit down and listen to that voice? Ranting all day. I just don't see him going to The View. It's going to be ABC or CNN. Somewhere he can claim to be impartial, even though we all know he's not.
Yeah. I really do hope that he lands at CNN. I would love to see him try to talk and argue with Scott Jennings.
How about Fox News, where he could be the one Democrat?
Yeah, that would be fantastic. It's to see him sitting up there with the 5, see him try to argue with Jesse Waters.
He'd never win again.
Yeah, or even better yet, whenever Greg Gutfeld is on, see him try to talk to Greg Gutfeld. That'd be hilarious.
You know, he'd just accuse them all of racism. That's how it would end.
Yeah, I would love to see him on an episode of Gutfeld and see him try to argue with Tyrus.
We all know that one's not happening.
Yeah, definitely. But like we said, we are officially glad that he is gone. Only a little bit longer. We got to suffer with him, and then we can move on to the next one. While we're on the topic of voting and elections, let's move over to LA. Los Angeles mayoral candidate Spencer Pratt has filed a formal election fraud and illegal electioneering complaint against incumbent Mayor Karen Bass. Pratt's attorney, Peter McNulty, submitted the complaint to the LA City Clerk, the same LA City Clerk that Karen Bass hired last year. It alleges that Bass explicitly broke California election law by engaging in illegal electioneering within 100 feet of a ballot drop box. Bass essentially caught herself in the act. The complaint comes from a video she posted to her own social media. In the footage, Bass and her campaign supporters are seen holding campaign signs directly next to an official election box while submitting ballots and soliciting votes. Pratt released a statement slamming the mayor, saying, quote, Karen Bass just violated election law here. She's so accustomed to breaking the law with no accountability, she even filmed herself doing it. This is just emblematic of Karen's mafia-like regime. The LA mayoral primary is just days away on June 2nd. Recent polling shows Mayor Bass is highly vulnerable, polling well under 50%. Pratt has emerged as a major anti-establishment force, heavily criticizing Bass over rising crime, homelessness, drug use, and her handling of disasters like the Palisades fire. Pratt's right-of-center populist campaign has been rapidly gaining momentum. He's even caught the eye of President Trump, who publicly stated, quote, I'd like to see him do well. The real question is if we will actually see Bass get in any trouble for this. Spencer Pratt is doing his best to stand toe-to-toe. I just don't know if it's going to be enough to get him elected in such a liberal area. Do you think they'll do anything about this, or is this another classic case of rules for thee, but not for me?
Yeah, I highly doubt anything will come from this. Most of the people who would have to hand out the punishment will be liberals. So would they punish one of their own? I just don't see it happening. It is smart of Spencer Pratt to point it out, and it shows the intelligence level of Karen Bass in the campaign. You are not the sharpest tool in the shed if you record yourself committing crimes. Now, if there were videos of Spencer Pratt doing what Bass did, he would almost certainly face consequences for it. I'm kind of in the same boat as Trump here. I hope he does well, but I struggle to see how such a liberal area would vote for someone who is basically a Republican. I know it's technically a nonpartisan election. With his policies, they will see him as a Republican. They would be wise to vote Spencer Pratt, but I don't know they will. Karen Bass has clearly shown she is incompetent, and the city would be better off with Pratt. The polls are close, and they say there's many still undecided. No candidate is above 50% as well, so we're likely going to see a runoff. There's a good chance we see a one-on-one between Karen Bass and Spencer Pratt.
Well, I certainly hope it happens. Just based on the ads that he's coming out, like the last episode where he played his Fresh Prince of Bel-Air spinoff and all that, I can only imagine the other stuff that he would try to do if he got elected.
Yeah, the ads are very good. They're memorable, and they point out all the failures of his opponent. Let's hope that's enough.
Yeah, he's doing a really good job with all that stuff. Like I said before, too, I also like the stencils that they're pressure washing into the streets. That's a really creative idea. But anyways, let's move on to our updates on Iran. On Monday, May 25th, the IRGC Navy attempted to deploy new mines in the international shipping lanes of the Strait of Hormuz. U.S. Navy aircraft intercepted them and sank 2 IRGC Navy vessels involved in the operation. Iran didn't just back down, though. Their shore-based surface-to-air missile batteries fired at the U.S. aircraft. The U.S. military immediately responded with retaliatory strikes, taking out those Iranian SAM batteries. On Tuesday, President Trump took to Truth Social to lay down a hard boundary for the ongoing peace talks. He stated that Iran's highly enriched uranium stockpile must be immediately turned over to the United States or destroyed on-site within Iran with full verification. Iran has been demanding a phase deal, wanting the U.S. to release the first half of their frozen economic assets immediately upon signing and the second half within 60 days. Meanwhile, they are attempting to legally reframe Strait of Hormuz transit tolls as protection fees.
The straits have to be open. They're going to be open where the others. So they need to be open. What's happening there is unlawful. It's illegal. It's unsustainable for the world. It's unacceptable. That cannot happen. The straits need to be open, unimpeded, without tolls. And obviously that needs to happen immediately.
These strikes were rightly framed as defensive operations. Iran wants to control the Strait of Hormuz because that will give them the control over the price of oil. Iran is similar to other nations in the region, where a large part of the government's revenue comes from profits on oil. They need to produce a certain amount of oil at certain prices to keep the government funded. Controlling the strait gives them the ability to get oil prices where they need them and gives them leverage over other nations in the region. We have talked many times about Iran and nuclear weapons. I believe Trump knows Iran wants sanctions relief and the ability to get nuclear weapons all at once. Many nations around the world see nuclear weapons as the ultimate security guarantee. I have said and continue to believe Iran will not give up the enriched uranium, and we will ultimately have to destroy it ourselves. You can't trust a terrorist regime. That would be foolish of the Trump administration, and I think they know that. Giving some of the frozen assets back without the removal of the enriched uranium would be a mistake. Let's hope Trump doesn't do it.
Yeah, they're acting tough externally. Internally, though, I think personally the regime is terrified of its own people. They might be thinking that they can fight the United States, but they have to be wary of Iranian citizens rising up, right?
Absolutely. Every dictatorship in the world has to act tough. You cannot show weakness. If the civilian population sees weakness, they are more likely to rise up and try to overthrow the government. They know they need to appear strong, so fear keeps people off the streets.
Hence why they kill people in the middle of the street as well.
Exactly. The IRGC knows people are struggling inside the country, and that struggle may cause them to go out and try and overthrow the government. When things get very tough, the risk of death is not as big of a factor. Humans can go through a lot, and most people can manage very difficult situations, but eventually the math changes, and you're willing to take more risks to make things better. The regime knows the economy is in massive trouble, and they are unable to lean on public services to make life easier. The Democrats in the US and Europe saying that we are losing is giving the regime the ammo to keep going. You know, every time a Democrat in the US says we're losing, that gets played on TV inside Iran. The government uses it for propaganda. That is one of the reasons why it is so difficult for Trump to get a deal.
Yeah, if they really knew what was good for the U.S. and they really cared, these Democrats would stop saying this stuff publicly and acting like we're losing, because we're obviously not.
It goes back to what we've talked about with it being a zero-sum game. You can take pain if you know the other side is in more pain. Them hearing us say we're losing makes them think it's hurting us more than it's hurting them.
Yeah, and we saw back in January, massive anti-regime protests were all over Iran, and the regime responded by completely pulling the plug on the entire nation's internet, trying to crush organization. They didn't want people to communicate and be able to organize. However, on Monday, Iranian President Mossad Peshkian ordered the communications ministry to finally lift the shutdown and restore international access. NetBlocks confirmed Tuesday that access has been partially restored. The regime didn't do this out of the goodness of their hearts. Intelligence assessments show that keeping the internet off for months caused catastrophic economic self-sabotage, spiked unemployment, and was actually speeding up a potential regime collapse. Even now, the hardline IRGC media is publicly questioning if the president even has the authority to turn it back on without the Supreme National Security Council sign-off. They're caught in a vice where they're bleeding cash, their proxy forces are getting crushed, and they're so terrified of internal revolution that they have to give their citizens the internet back just to keep the economy from completely crashing. Maybe Tehran is finally seeing the light? What do you think?
It's all about staying in power. I highly doubt they're seeing the light. They are doing the math and know people will rise up if things don't get better. Turning off the internet was a way to slow the protests and hide the horrendous acts the government committed. The people on the streets get crushed, and fear drives them home, and with no internet, the atrocities committed don't become well known, causing more people to go out and protest. That is only something that can happen in a dictatorship, by the way. They call Trump a dictator, but imagine the uprising, even on the right, if Trump cut access to the internet. Iran really is running out of options. They need Trump in Israel to beat ourselves. Their proxy networks have been destroyed. Hezbollah was destroyed, and the government of Lebanon has had conversations with Israel about getting them out of the country entirely. Hezbollah was strong enough at one point, the government was afraid of them. That has changed. Hamas has been decimated. The Houthis are not really capable of being anything more than a nuisance. They blocked shipping through the Red Sea, but were not capable of identifying which ships were friendly and who had paid their toll. Israel took out one proxy network after another, and Iran's plan of having all the proxies shoot missiles at Israel has fallen apart. I do think Trump would be wise to start shooting again to put even more pressure on the Iranian regime. You can still negotiate while taking out strategic targets. It will let them know you're still serious about getting a deal, too.
Yeah, and we need to really start strong-arming them, in my opinion. Now, I want to get into the Abraham Accords real quick here.
Over the weekend, the president called the Arabs and said he's only going to sign the deal and reopen the strait if they join the Abraham Accords. That means Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Egypt, Pakistan, Turkey, Jordan, all normalize relations with Israel. Now, when Trump dropped that on them, the Arabs were, quote, stunned. Another source tells Axios that they ended up telling the president this, quote, "We are with you on this deal, and if it doesn't work, we will be with you too." Now, we're pinning the whole Arab world against the Iranians. Trump just turned the Abraham Accords into a trap. It means if the Iranians and their proxies mess with Israel, they're messing with the whole rest of the Arab world. And for us, that means we don't have to be the Middle East babysitters.
So what exactly does all that mean for Iran?
Well, this would be bad for Iran. But all the other nations in the Middle East can see that being on the American side is in the best interest of their country. If every nation normalized relations with Israel, Iran's regime would have no allies when it comes to destroying the nation they see as Satan. The interesting part will be Oman, who Trump threatened to stay out of it. Oman was considering working with Iran to control the Strait of Hormuz and charge a toll to increase revenue. Trump made it clear that is a bad idea and could lead to strikes in Oman. Most nations in the Middle East only think about themselves and their own survival. I think signing up to normalize relations with the Jews probably isn't the worst thing. I do think some of them will do it. We saw Saudi Arabia was close before October 7, 2023, and they put a pause on it when Hamas attacked. I do think they will eventually get there, even if it wasn't for this war, but I think this will accelerate it. They now know clearly who the real enemy in the region is.
Yeah, I think it would be a terrible idea for Oman to try to pick sides with Iran.
I mean, you see Iran can't do anything against our military.
Yeah.
Do you think Oman did the math and said, our military before this war started was better than Iran's? It wasn't.
Yeah, I think they probably looked at it like, okay, well, we have this average Joe in the blue corner, or we can go over here and fight Brock Lesnar in the red corner.
Yeah, and they've got to know all those naval ships are pretty close to their country, too.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah. Now, we mentioned earlier, too, people saying we're losing. I still think it's funny that people say that, but here's a clip of Ben Shapiro breaking down some of that rhetoric.
Iran maintaining control over the Strait of Hormuz, were that true, they would be able to ship their own oil out, would they not? They would be able to toll ships that were traveling, would they not? They cannot do any of those things. As far as limiting U.S. and Israeli attacks on its energy industry, Trump is not sure that he wants to do that because he is not sure that he wants to destroy the lifeline of a future Iranian regime if they were to moderate. He's afraid that hurting the energy supplies in Iran would hurt the Iranian people. And sure, he is concerned at the spike in oil prices that would accompany an Iranian counterfire against UAE, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia. As far as the war in Lebanon, the Israelis are still pursuing that military action in Lebanon, and they are likely to pursue it further as time goes on because Hezbollah is, again, not giving up the ghost in Lebanon. Nonetheless, the New York Times did find experts, in scare quotes here, to explain that Iran is winning. Nicole Grajewski, who teaches at the Center for International Studies at Sciences Po in France, says, quote, Iran definitely has the advantage here. The U.S. is kind of flailing at the moment. Again, in what sense do they have an advantage? So the idea here is that Iran is pressuring UAE and Qatar, except that UAE wants the United States to go even further. Saudi may be lobbying the United States not to go further, but that's only because the United States has not evidenced willingness to go all the way. If the United States were to say to Saudi and UAE, we're toppling the regime, both of those states would be on side. What they don't want are half measures, which again makes some sense. So the pressure is not on the United States in the sense that America is about to be damaged. The pressure is on Iran as to whether or not the regime lasts. Iran's strategy, according to the New York Times, of targeting oil fields in surrounding countries has shifted much of the focus of the war to the crucial question of how to get the strait reopened and how to limit Iranian leverage over it in the future. Efforts to pressure Iran to reopen the crucial waterway have proved unsuccessful. Now, again, there are options that President Trump does not want to use, but he certainly could. Nonetheless, according to the New York Times, Iran, though deeply damaged by the war, is likely to emerge from it with a valuable new asset. I assume this means shutting down the shipping in the strait. Having at least partial control over the strait would not only be a source of revenue for the regime, but also a form of geopolitical strength. Now, they could have done that before. That's the whole point. Do you want a regime that could have shut the strait at any point to have a ballistic missile umbrella and nuclear weapons? The answer there is no.
Spot on with that take by Ben Shapiro. Iran is looking for any leverage they can get. The military has basically been destroyed, and they really didn't inflict a whole lot of damage to the U.S. or Israel. The U.S. has lost about 15 military personnel, and Israel has lost about 50 people, including civilians. I don't know how you can look at that and think Iran is winning. It is nice we have people in the West, though, who will push propaganda for a radical regime. You know, if you went to Iran and started pushing Christianity, they would torture you to death.
Yeah, Iran's not in control of anything. How bad we hurt them is completely dependent on just how much damage President Trump is willing to do. He's been showing mercy thus far. He's trying to help them. They just don't really see it.
This reminds me of something that came up the other day with Russia. Putin has convinced the ordinary Russian that it is just a special military operation, and Russia is holding back out of the kindness of their heart. Reality shows Russia shooting at hospitals and schools and throwing everything they have at Ukraine. Putin convinced the Russians he is holding back, while he has nothing more to throw. Trump, because people on the left hate him so much, has made people think we have thrown everything at Iran and we can't win, despite the fact that there's not a single troop on the ground and we still have many naval vessels in the region. It's completely the opposite. It is also quite ironic that Russia and Iran portray us as the bad guys who shoot at schools and target women and children, which is exactly what they do.
Man, that sounds familiar. Who else does that?
They must have taken that from the Democrats' playbook, where you blame the other side and accuse them of doing exactly what you're doing while denying you're doing it. Where have we seen that one before?
Yep.
Trump has options. He can make this a lot worse for them. I think Trump is trying to negotiate in good faith, but the other side clearly isn't. We have said the longer this goes, the more pressure there is on Trump. I think we are at the point where we start using the military again. Let's try to wrap this up.
Yeah. And if Iran doesn't want to play ball, then, again, I'm of the opinion that just crush them.
They have a stick, and you have fighter jets. You have the hammer. Drop it on them.
Yep. All right, everyone. It is time for our blind ranking segment. Matt is giving me the list today. Today we have political commentators. Matt, I am ready. Fire away.
I've got a good list for you today. This is a tough one. Think long and hard before you just throw a name into a number. First name up, Michael Knowles.
Michael Knowles. I am a fan of Michael Knowles. I like him.
Where do we go?
Man, I'm going to start high here. I'm going to put Knowles at 1.
Oh, number 1.
Yep, I'm gonna
I
put him
did
at
not see that coming.
I'm going to put him at 1.
I have a feeling the next one will be at the other end of the list. Hassan Piker.
He's bad, but could you be giving me someone worse? Hassan, he's just an idiot, to be honest.
A full-blown communist.
Like, he's just an idiot.
Takes kids' money, selling them the idea that socialism and communism will save the day. I also loved when he told all of the internet that Cuba has great internet connection, and the moment it came out of his mouth, the internet cut out.
I'm going to put Hassan at 4.
Number 4.
Yeah, I think there
okay.
might be someone worse.
All right, next up, Anna Kasparian.
Anna Kasparian. I don't know a ton about her. Not really a fan. I'm going to play it safe here with her. I'm just going to put her at 3.
Number 3, okay. Next up, you have the one who gave her her start, Cenk Uygur.
5.
Oh, number 5, worse than Hassan Piker.
Yeah, I do not like Cenk.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I can't stand him.
That leaves number 2
I can
open.
feel my IQ dropping when he speaks.
Yeah, he loses his mind a lot, too.
Yeah.
I think you'll be happy leaving number 2 open. Sean Hannity.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Michael Knowles 1, Sean Hannity 2, Anna Kasparian 3, Hassan Piker 4, and Cenk Uygur 5. Is that a perfect list?
I think so. I think I nailed it there.
I would have thought you put Hassan Piker at 5, but close.
I'm good with that, to be honest. Like I said, I obviously tried to avoid listening to Hassan Piker as much as possible. Same thing with Cenk. But at least Hassan's voice isn't as annoying to me as Cenk's is. So,
yeah, but if you listen to what Hassan Piker is trying to sell, it's far worse than what Cenk is saying.
yeah.
Hassan thinks that communism has never truly been attempted, and that all the attempts before failed because they didn't go far enough.
Yeah, that's scary to think about.
Yeah, complete moron.
That is it for episode 60 of the Republic Brothers podcast. Before you click away, please hit the subscribe or follow button. New episodes drop every Monday and Thursday. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.